I would like to do to kick off this video is kind of peel the curtain back a little bit on what is going on in the mindset, emotional state of a dungeon master in the middle of leading a game of Dungeons and Dragons. And then I want to invite you all to help out at your tables to relieve some of this junk and pressure that's going on. Leading a game of Dungeons & Dragons sort of feels like you're trying to provide a 5-course meal to people you really care about, and you want everything to go really well. And in addition to doing that, you're juggling flaming swords while trying to recite the alphabet backwards, and for no reason explainable to anybody present, there's a monkey screaming in the back corner non-stop that you can't get out of your head, and it's like, oh, is everybody having fun? Like, I gotta worry about everybody having fun in the middle of all of this too. It's just so much. And it's not because of some relational dynamic thing that I'm getting at here. It's not like, oh, this is just hard because of these particular players. No. It's none of that. It's just because you're trying to navigate combat. You're trying to navigate the story and keep all of these details together. You're trying to remember every single NPC's cousin's middle name. And it's just like, whoa, okay, like, are there things that we could do to kind of divvy that out, share some of the responsibility, so that the DM can focus on some of the bigger, more intensive parts of what they're really trying to do, and invite the players in to share some of that load and keep track of things in a way that just sort of spreads all that out. Doesn't make it all rely on one person's brain. That's what I'm getting at with this particular video. And so I've got 12 different roles that players can take on to kind of come up under that DM and share some of the weight of being a DM. And before I get into those, I want to share some of the long-term effects of why I think this would be really good to consider. Because this isn't just like delegating things I don't like to do. This is inviting people into responsibility that's really good for them and really helpful and good for the Dungeon Master as well. So one for the players is taking on some responsibility is just going to increase buy-in for the game. You've got more stake in it. You've got a part of it. You're owning the success of the sessions because you want it to go smoother, and so you're going to take on some of the responsibility. And I think that's a win. Next is the growth in understanding of DMing from the player side of the table. You're going to get some responsibility. You're going to see some of what it entails, what you've got to track, what you've got to do as a dungeon master, and you're going to get to grow in some of those responsibilities and in some of those tasks by doing it as a player. You just get one part of it now, and then maybe you shift later and you do a different part, and then eventually you've gotten a lot of experience of DMing without DMing yet, and you're going to feel more comfortable if you want to step into that DM seat later. Then lastly, I think this really plays into DM burnout too. So I think the DM is going to enjoy D&D more because things are going to be spread out a little bit, and they're not going to be so bogged down, they're not going to be so stressed, they're not going to be thinking about so many different things and pieces and trying to hold it all together. DMing just becomes more accessible and easier, and that's going to play into less likely to burn out and want to just quit and have more emotional engagement into your D&D games as well. That's what I think's at stake. I think these are things that as we work on these together and we're trying to collaborate and not let the success and fun of D&D all rest on the DM's shoulders, if we all bear that and work together, I think that we're just gonna get better games. So that's my aim, that's what I'm going for, that's what I try to do here at Riddle and Roll, is I want to get us to have better D&D games and grow in our understanding of the game. And so for right now, for this video, I'm gonna do that by sharing 12 different roles that players can take on to then help share that load and help D&D be that much better for their tables. Role number 1, the Chronicler. The Chronicler is going to be the person who records the notes. They're going to, obviously, I think that's the first one everybody thinks about. Writing down NPC names, key events, plot points, and they're going to bear the responsibility in the middle of the session where if there's a question like, what was that NPC's name again? Or how long do we have to do this task? That this player is going to be the one who's like, oh, let me check my notes, and they will figure that out, instead of distracting the DM away from what's happening in the moment. And they can stay focused on running the game where they're at, and that player is going to then take care of finding that information and communicating it to the table. Role number 2, the storyteller. The storyteller is going to be focused on doing the recap of every single session. They know this is coming, it's their responsibility, and their intention is to do it well. So they may use the notes from the Chronicler, but then they're going to then consolidate that into some form of, hey, here's a recap, here's what happened, and this is going to set the tone for the session as we are now stepping back into D&D. Bonus points if you do this with some type of theme or fun little side part to it. I think you can do this while role-playing your character, but I also think, and I don't know your thoughts on this, but it's fine, you can take notes, plug it into ChatGPT and say, hey, could you make this into a poem? Could you make this into a song a bard would sing in a tavern? Could you make this into a Dr. Seuss-like story? Like, you can have fun with that and do something that makes it more engaging and entertaining and exciting for players to then come back and get D&D started. The storyteller. Role number 3, the Arbiter of Turns. The Arbiter of Turns. What player would not want to be, yeah, I'm the Arbiter of Turns. What we're doing here, though, is we're allowing somebody to be the person who just tracks initiative during combat. Hey, when combat starts, you write it down, track everybody's numbers, sort it out, and keep us on track during the combat. That's just a responsibility for the DM to not think about and focus on other things during combat. It's going to be such a game changer, so helpful for the DM to just not have that to also do while trying to do everything else in the middle of combat. Rule number 4, the timekeeper. I don't like tracking time and days in my campaign. It feels like it would be really helpful information, but it's also a lot of work to do. And so I think just giving somebody the responsibility to say, hey, when our campaign starts, could you just track every long rest? If we fast track a week, could you just write down how many days it's been and add that in? And can you just keep us online with how long has it been since major events? How long has it been since the campaign started? All of that. Can you just be our human calendar for D&D in world, what has been happening? That's it, the timekeeper. I think it'd be immensely helpful. Rule number 5, the keeper of rules. This one, maybe not for every table, and I would have some particular dynamics sorted out about it, but the keeper of rules is going to be somebody with like the Dungeon Master's Guide and the Player's Handbook ready to go, probably with tabs on different sections so you can quickly turn to certain pages. And what I would do is just say, hey, you're familiar with the rules in the book. What I would like you to do is if I ask you for clarity on a rule, could you just pop that open, find the answer, and help us keep moving. I do not want you to be rules lawyering me, and when I'm making decisions, you be like, well, actually, that's not what the invitation is. The invitation is, if and when we need it, in the middle of something, and I want something to be cleared and sorted out, could you be the person who quickly finds that while we're still keeping the game moving? I think that can be really helpful, and I think it'd be really helpful if we're all learning the game together. If it's a newer table and there's a lot of those little stops that you want to make along the way, I think that this is a good role to sort out. Maybe not for everyone and for every table, but I think it's worth mentioning. Rule number 6, the quartermaster. The quartermaster is going to be managing party loot, items, resources, supplies, all of that. So if it's like tracking how many potions that we have, or sorting out if we've got an old key item that was mentioned that somebody's got that we haven't thought about or used in a couple of weeks, like, hey, just a reminder, we've got this thing, what are we doing about it? Things like that. Just be the inventory manager. You could also manage people's attunement slots to just make sure that that's all tracked well. Who has what magical items? If there are magical items that haven't been used in a while, it's like, oh, we got this dagger that nobody's touched. Does somebody want to use that or remember that you have it? Things like that. Just managing inventory in whatever ways are helpful to your table. The quartermaster. The next one, we're going to go with the healer's aid, the condition master, the condition tracker, anything like that, but you'll see the healer's aid. This player is going to be tracking conditions, things like poisoned, stunned, unconscious, people needing to make concentration checks. When does the saving throw need to be made to break a particular condition? So at the end of somebody's turn, when somebody starts their turn or a monster starts its turn, reminding the DM, hey, by the way, that thing is stunned or it has fairy fire on it, or something like that. This person is just your condition tracker, just trying to help make sure that those details don't get lost. Really easy to lose track of those as a DM. So invite somebody to be the person who focuses on that during combat. Next one's going to be the diplomat. The diplomat is going to focus on NPC relationships, tracking list of names. What is the relationship like between the party and that person? Remember who owes you a favor, or who you owe a favor if you're in debt to somebody. With all of that too, during the active campaign, you might come across questions or information you want from a particular NPC the next time you go back to town. And so you're like, oh yeah, next time we see that person, can we ask them this question? And then when you get back to town, this person would then pull up and be like, all right, these 3 NPCs are here that we talked with before, and we made a note that we wanted to follow up with this one person. So does somebody want to go and do that? This is the diplomat. Somebody's just managing those relationships and thinking about the NPCs. Rule number 9, the Keeper of Time. The Keeper of Time is different than the Timekeeper you saw earlier, but the Keeper of Time organizes the real-world scheduling. This is going to be somebody ensuring that the reminders are sent about D&D, the start time is clear, just helping keep on track, because it is one of the most frustrating parts of D&D is like when people forget, double book themselves, show up late, all of that. So just assign that to a player to be like, hey, can you send a reminder out at these times? The time, the location, all of that. Just make sure that people don't forget and lose track. Number 10 is the minstrel. You can go with the bard for this as well. The minstrel just sets the mood with the background music, the sound effects, for battles playing particular songs, or for dungeons doing the eerie kind of creepy thing, adding that cinematic touch. It is challenging as a DM to be the person who verbally communicates these things, and you're trying to set all of this tone and manage all of that information while also fiddling around on a laptop or a phone and trying to get the right song playing at the right time. So just ask somebody else to do that. I think that a player would very much find that easy to do in addition to other things, and have that pulled up and just remove that responsibility from the list of things the DM's already trying to do. The minstrel. Next, we've got the strategist, and then we've got one more after that. The strategist is going to be rare. Not every table needs to use this, and not every combat needs to use this, but on occasion, and for the right timing, I think the strategist can really be a game changer for those key combat scenarios. The strategist, they're going to be helping the DM by controlling simpler monsters during combat. The example I want to use for this is, let's say the DM is running a combat with a goblin lord, his dire wolf, and then 4 wolves in addition to that. To focus on the theming and the decision making, maybe even the legendary actions of that goblin lord, it would be hard to manage all of that plus all the other things. So to do that well, to just be like, hey, let me just focus on the dire wolf and that goblin lord, I'm gonna invite you to, can you control the 4 wolves, decide who they attack, make the rolls for them, roll the damage, do all of that, so that I can just maintain my focus on the bigger entities around this fight. That's the invitation here. That's the strategist. Not every fight, and the right person for that one, where you know you can trust them to not kind of meta that and be like, oh, but if I attack that person, they're gonna die. So let me convince you that they're gonna attack this person. It's like, no. Like, do this in the most normal and hopefully the way that I would as a DM too. I would invite another DM if they are playing at my table to be that person. And I might even give some insight where it's like, these wolves would attack the closest person to them or the last person that attacked them. You can even give them that type of direction, so then they can just run with that. So it's a sensitive one. Like I wouldn't just do that willy-nilly, but if you've got the right fit, go ahead and try out the strategist. I think for the right combat, it can really help out. And then lastly, I want to pitch the sustainer. Nothing makes D&D more fun than the snacks provided. And so the sustainer would be somebody who just bears the responsibility for, like, hey, every time we meet, could you go and do a run where it's like these snacks and drinks are provided, and then come to agreement with your table too, where it's like, yeah, and we're going to Venmo this person this amount for it every single time we play too. So they can be the person who runs and gets the things. As a DM, I always want to make sure that these things are provided, but for all the prep and hosting and everything too, this would just be nice for somebody else who's already out and about and on their way to take care of. And so invite somebody to that if you have somebody who's willing to do it, rather than that also being on the burden of the DM. But that's it. So there you have it. 12 different roles, 12 different ways to turn the chaos of D&D into the collaboration of D&D. So that you can do things like tracking time, managing initiative, getting snacks, getting the table energized, all of these roles, making that a team effort instead of the DM just trying to convince everybody, hey, we're all here having a good time. If you've enjoyed this, if you think that this is helpful, please do the things, hit the button, subscribe to Riddle and Roll. It encourages me to continue to make videos, and then you'll also get to see and hear the future videos that I've got coming out with the same heart in mind, to make D&D more helpful and more enjoyable for everybody involved. Again, the Dungeon Master is not the only one responsible for making this magic happen. So let's work together on that. Let's make this more fun and enjoyable for everybody involved. See you around. Play well. Play smart.